Hey, I want to know what she was fired for. Because was it criticism of Israel? Was it, I mean, did she show that Edward Snowden video that he put up on Twitter that shows them
maybe
drone bombing those kids that are, those men, I should say, danger to anybody?
Yeah,
they
right.
just bomb them.
Yeah, no, it's your duty. It's just like for Biden or whoever you like, you're supposed to cover up for them. Because
but the whole thing is like they're always saying they're only targeting Hamas and everybody else is a casualty. Well, if those guys are just unarmed civilians and they're walking alone, that's what they appear to be.
Dresden.
And you just blast them from the sky with robots.
This is the tragedy of war.
Yeah, this is insane. And no one knows what to think now, because if you can't talk about that, if you can't say that's real, then you're saying that genocide is okay as long as we're doing it. And
that is what we're saying.
And if you're saying that from a perspective of someone who literally went through the Holocaust, or your people, your tribe went through the fucking Holocaust, and now you're willing to do it?
I hope the irony is not lost on you.
It's so nuts. It's so hard to imagine that someone where a culture, like a country, was like officially founded in what, 47?
48.
48? Okay, officially founded. So that's so recent. and you guys are willing to do what was done to you that led you to believe that you needed to start your own country. You're willing to do that, at least on a small scale in Gaza. Like, there's nothing left. If you see the videos, let's see some recent footage of Gaza.
What's popping? Good morning. Good morning, my friends and my family. The Zionists have officially lost the biggest podcast in the world, Joe Rogan.
Hey, I want to know what.
Now, this is not. I actually am very annoyed by Rogan. I roasted Rogan quite a bit recently because he was one of those people that was condemning pro-Palestinian protesters. He was like, I don't understand what all these people in the streets for Hamas for. Like, he criticized young people for being quote unquote pro-Hamas. He had State Department goons like James Lindsay on. It only took 6 months and the slaughter of over 10,000 children for Joe Rogan to finally do 90 seconds where he finally said it's a genocide. People need to realize that the dumbest among us, the dumbest and the most morally, the people who are cowards, they are the people who just now realizing that this genocide is about to go down in history. The people with a platform that don't speak up about it, they are now realizing that they will be on the wrong side of history. So now they are tepidly mentioning the fact that it's a genocide. Joe Rogan has been live for hours, and only 90 seconds. Just now, you wanted to say it's a genocide? And the reason why I frame it like this, guys, can you imagine the reaction of these white dude podcast bros if China murdered over 12,000 children? Bro, if China murdered over 12,000 children, you would have white podcasters lead with that every damn day. That would be the only thing they talk about. When you look at the right, they freak out about China. When you look at the United States and UK, they spread bullshit about a Uyghur genocide with no evidence. And they was fear-mongering over that for years. You guys notice they don't talk about that anymore, right? The Uyghur genocide. Because now people realize how fucking ridiculous it is. The idea that China was committing a genocide that it was actually secretly covering up. That was the argument made by these people. Oh, that China's actually committing a genocide, but there's no way to track it. Let's just ignore all the independent investigations, independent journalists that have long since rebuked it, including the Associated Press. The Associated Press went to China and said there was no evidence of a genocide there. You had the Trump State Department that launched an investigation to try to find dirt on China, and they couldn't produce anything. That was going to report on the genocide and the abuse of the Uyghur Muslims, and the Trump administration couldn't find anything, and they scrapped it. White podcast bros uncritically repeat the Tiananmen massacre and the Uyghur genocide story, despite the fact that we've seen no dead bodies. Now that we have been traumatized by seeing dead and mangled children, I saw a child that was a skeleton today. I saw a child that their skin was all like grayish because of malnutrition, and she would look like a fucking skeleton. Where are those images coming out of China, my friends? Not a goddamn one. And now that Israel is looking to go into Rafah, now you have these people that was pretending that Israel wasn't saying genocidal shit, that they didn't have genocidal actions. Now they're saying, oh man, come on, man, this is kind of crazy, man. Now you got Rogan. Now you have Alex Jones. Alex Jones, who loves every conspiracy theory known to man. Every conspiracy theory Alex Jones will repeat, but this motherfucker still won't tell the truth about October 7th. He still blames Hamas for October 7th. Alex Jones' conspiracy theory is that Israel propped up Hamas and allowed them to do October 7th instead of bringing up the fact that Israeli Apache helicopters was caught bombing and blowing up Israeli cars, shooting at Israeli residents, and after multiple investigations, more civilians were killed by the IDF than was killed by Hamas. Alex Jones not touching that conspiracy. Alex Jones is going around talking about, let me see if I can find my tweet, because people think he's doing this face turn, and I guess it's better than him not saying anything at all. I gotta find my tweet, the tweet, where he's like, man, Israel's losing the PR war. That's what he keeps saying. I'm gonna see if I can find my tweet. Alex Jones, instead of morally condemning Israel for what they're doing, he's saying that they're losing the PR war. So my point is, at what point, here it is, this is what I'm looking for. At what point do you stop worrying about the PR of Israel and start morally condemning them yourselves? This is the cowardly belief. This is the cowardice I have noticed, especially from these people who fear themselves as being people who speak truth to power, people who consider themselves anti-establishment. The weakness that they had on the issue of Israel, I cannot unsee, because look at this. This is Alex Jones' commentary. He says Israel is publicly committing PR suicide. At what point do you stop caring about the PR? And then you start morally condemning them yourself and start providing that negative PR? This is a good comment, and I do want to say this. This person said, give him credit for saying it for 90 seconds. It's the 90 seconds that will influence a lot of opinions on the situation, which is why I am covering it, which is why I think it's important. If you ask me my personal opinion, do I think Joe Rogan is going to follow this up? Absolutely not. This is going to be like the 190 seconds, and I'm that's just my guess. But it is undeniably positive that Joe Rogan finally said the word genocide regarding the Israel issue. Because at this point, it's undeniable. As someone who's been covering this issue for years, as someone who saw the genocide coming and seeing what Rogan was saying before, condemning pro-Palestinian protesters, I just did a segment not too long ago where he hosted James Lindsay, and it was spreading unhinged anti-China bullshit. For you to come in, the official number is 40,000 dead, 12,000 dead children. We already know that's higher than that, but let's just go with the official number for simplicity. For you to come in after 12,000 dead children and you want me to applaud you, that is absolutely not going to happen. I am absolutely not going to sit here and be like, oh my God, thank God, Alex Jones and Joe Rogan speaking up against Israel. 6 months too late. And they are still weak in their criticism of Israel after everything Israel has done. I went to a giant right-wing space. There was this space that often hosts Alex Jones. This Mario guy who's friend with Elon Musk. You guys know him. I told you guys the story before. I went in there hot like, bro, I don't think Israel has the right to exist. They don't. Can you imagine how they would be speaking if China murdered over 100 journalists? God knows what the number is now. Over 100 UN officials was caught plausibly committing a genocide, was demanded by the UN Security Council to cease fire, and their reaction was, fuck you and your Security Council. We are not going to cease fire. Can you imagine their reaction if China did that? This is why I am unimpressed. The Western chauvinism, and I should say the people who apologize for United States allies, the people who, there's two rules. They see the Zionists, their friends. They can do whatever they want, but they are super critical on China, Iran, Russia, and other countries. That's the height of cowardice. We should be calling out our countries. We should be focused on the United States, not focused on China and Russia. We should be focused on our countries. We should be focused on humanizing the enemy. They do the exact opposite. They humanize the most disgusting swamp monsters that we ever seen. They humanize them and make excuses, while at the same time you can't humanize North Korea, Xi Jinping. You can't humanize Russia and Putin. So that's why I want you guys to think about that. I want you guys to think, how would they talk about this issue if North Korea killed 12,000 children? Would they be doing this? Oh man, North Korea is committing PR suicide. They wouldn't be talking about the fucking PR, the DPRK. This is weak lip dick bullshit. Do you guys understand? This is the weak lip dick bullshit that for some reason Alex Jones, Tucker Carlson, they're allowed to get away with. Russell Brand is another coward. This motherfucker does everything he can to talk about Gaza. The most important story of our modern time. The genocide in Gaza, the moral litmus test of our time. Russell Brand will talk about everything else except that. Alex Jones, when he talks about, is talking about Israel PR. And he's talking about how Israel still needs to exist as a state. He said, man, what you guys are doing, you guys are losing the world. You guys are, instead of saying, fuck you guys for killing children, instead of saying, fuck you guys for tossing out international law, what Alex Jones and these people said, oh my God, Israel, well, you guys are ruining the game. Come on, man. We don't want to talk about this. We don't want to talk about this. You guys are forcing us to talk about this. Why is it about the PR? Why won't you morally condemn them yourself? The American people are. And this is why I'm not, like, Rogan saying it's a genocide, whatever. People put way too much stock in celebrity endorsements, what they fucking say. People already see it's a genocide. The only difference is people see that Joe Rogan is a coward for not calling it out. So Joe Rogan has to call it out because he gets pressure because the average American sees it. Fam, like, when you study issues, you know that numbers usually turn slowly. Like, when you look at the Americans who support defunding the police, it's shot up significantly over the last few years. Went from negative 33 to being supported by 55% of independents. They never tell you that. I'm the only one who actually report on these numbers. Defund the police is not in a great place. I am not pretending that it's a great place. But compared to where it was, to go to negative 33 to be at like a 50% split is crazy. Guys, that's what they call a trend line. When you see polls flip extremely fast. The same thing would happen to single payer, where a lot of Americans are like, I don't know about single payer. And then it flipped. Now 70% of the country supports single payer. You know what I mean? Those drastic trend lines matter. Now, when you look at the amount of Americans who supported Israel's genocidal actions at the beginning, in November of last year, you had around 50% of Americans who approved of the genocide in Gaza. They saw the thousands of dead children, the most deadly battlefield of all time. And largely white America was like, yeah, we good with this. Because I got to say that, because I'm not here to protect your feelings. When you look at those early polls, when you separate it from age and when you separate it from black, brown versus white America, black and brown people oppose this war around 70 to 75% from the very beginning. White America supported it around 75 to 80% in the very beginning. So when you see that number 50%, that number is actually dragged down by black and brown people. I mean, let me rephrase it. It's inflated by black and brown people and dragged down by white America. So for the very beginning, there was a racial split. But I am very happy to report that even though it took a large segment of white America to get on board, it became undeniable. It became undeniable. I reported on how 58% of white evangelical Christians supported a ceasefire. 70% of Jewish Democrats supported a ceasefire. Around 55% of Jewish people overall supported a ceasefire. These are numbers you will never hear on our Zionist corporate-controlled news networks. They pretend that people who support genocide are pro-Hamas, that they are college kids. Oh, you're just a college kid who are pro-Hamas. You've been brainwashed by TikTok. Bro, you lost white evangelical Christians. Shut all the way the fuck up. You guys lost Jewish Democrats. I keep saying Jewish Democrats. It's Jewish people as a whole, my friends. It's just the Jewish Democrat number is extremely high. They lost Jewish people as a whole, but they pretending that people who are against the genocide are pro-Hamas. That is what people on the right still do to this day. That is what the Daily Wire does to this day. That is what Ben Shapiro does to this day. That is what MSNBC does to this day. I seen this. You even had a CNN. I forgot. I'm trying to blank on the fucking guy's name. They literally called Rashida Tlaib the pro-Hamas wing of the Democrat Party. She don't even support the right for Palestinians to resist the state of Israel. She don't believe in Palestinians' self-defense. She says, stop killing kids. Guys, I have to make the distinction because not many people are making the distinction. I don't view you as good on this issue. And this is why I'm glad that, and I'll give big props to Breonna Joy Gray for showing us exposing Marianne Williamson, because people think that Marianne Williamson was good before on this issue. They think that these progressive accept Palestine people are good on this issue. You're not good on this issue for me if you condemn Palestinian resistance. If you legitimize a state that is illegitimate, you are not good. You're a Zionist. So there was a discourse that I started, my friends. There's a reason why I'm blacklisted. There's a reason why RBN is blacklisted. We throw a sledgehammer to the POC class. Big shout out to Bree for acknowledging this, because I was very confused about Bree propping up Marianne Williamson, and Bree just exposed Marianne. Because I was explaining, like, bro, if you believe that Israel has the right to dominate Palestinians, if you believe in their right to exist and even implement this bullshit two-state solution, after they was caught guilty killing records amount of Palestinians in the year 2022, you're a Zionist. You're a Zionist. This is what I was bringing up to them before October 7th, before the genocide. Who was covering Israel consistently? I was. And I brought up how Marianne Williamson and them bring up and they inherently support the idea of Zionism. I don't believe you're good on the Israel-Palestine issue just because you say, I believe that Palestinians have the right to exist. No, you should believe in the legal right for Palestinians to resist their genocidal occupiers. And that is not what Marianne Williamson agrees with. She supports the Iron Dome because she believes that Hamas and Palestinians are in the wrong for firing rockets in self-defense against Israel. They fire rockets at Israel because they keep violating their sovereignty. They're at war. But Marianne Williamson defends the Iron Dome. These are very small differences that people are actually serious on this issue understand. And I brought up, you can't condemn the right of Palestinians to resist the state of Israel. And I don't believe that we should be accepting the bullshit idea of a two-state solution. The only reason people support a two-state solution is because of electoral politics. Repeat after me, my friends. The only reason people support a two-state solution is because of electoral politics. They don't believe that a one-state solution where everyone had equal rights under the law is passable, is able to be accomplished in the United States, so they don't go there. So, fam, why should we limit our demands on justice based on what's possible through electoral politics? That is clown, anti-revolutionary thinking. And I know what people are thinking right now. Hey, Nick, don't some Palestinian organizations support the two-state solutions? Not the radical ones, not the Palestinian Community Network, not the people actually in the struggle. Now, I want people to understand this. And this is a point that I made before. There are Palestinians that are forced to accept the two-state solution. And they advocate for the two-state solution because if they don't, they get murdered. Listen to me, my friends. And this is probably the most important point I'm going to make all stream. Palestinians who support the two-state solution gets murdered. They get labeled as Palestinians who support a one-state solution. Sorry, let me rephrase that. Palestinians who support a one-state, the correct solution, they get called terrorists, they get smeared as a mosque, and they get targeted. They get deplatformed, they get economically retaliated against, and if they live in Israel, you get murdered. So they are pressured with the threat of their life to support a two-state solution. But we, as people outside the Palestinian community, we cannot undercut their demand for justice. We are not under the same pressure that Palestinians are under because of the fascist Israelis. I have talked to our friends of the Palestinian Community Network, which is a real legitimate. They had Nelson Mandela's grandson. They organized many Palestinian events. And this is what Marianne Williamson, she didn't even fucking understand this point. I was like, man, I had talked to the Palestinian Community Network. She's like, you have friends? You said I don't have friends? I'm like, man, nigga, I'm not saying friends, you idiot. I am talking about an organization. So many that went over so many people's fucking head because they don't even know who the Palestinian Community Network is. Look at the tape. I was like, Marianne Williamson, I talked to the Palestinian Community Network. They find it's completely unacceptable. And she's like, man, I got Palestinian friends too. That is not what I said. I quoted an organization that you clearly don't know anything about, Marianne. And these organizations support a one-state solution because they're radical and they're not intimidated of the retaliation that they get for supporting the correct answer. So if you think I'm being radical here, I'm gonna ask you guys a question. If you think about, oh my gosh, should I support a one-state solution, two-state solution? Okay. We had apartheid in South Africa, correct? How did they solve the issue of South Africa apartheid? What is the proven solution to solving apartheid, my friends? Is the proven solution to apartheid dividing up in two states and arming the apartheid state with military funds so they can dominate the people that they are fucking oppressing? Is that the fucking historical context of how to solve an apartheid state? Are we ever going to get serious? Now, once again, you guys got to understand, Palestinians are threatened with death. They are economically retaliated against. They are assaulted by Israeli terrorists if they mention the correct solution. If a Palestinian come out and say they support a one-state solution, there's open season on them. Let alone if they live in Israel. If they live in the UK, they will get branded anti-Semitic. They will never get hired. They will get fired from any media job that they have. Do you guys have any idea the authoritarian censorship regime that Zionists have put on Palestinians and Muslims? That's why it is upon us to support the one-state solution. It's upon Palestinian allies to support it. And I have watched for years Palestinian allies undercut the Palestinian Community Network. For years, I have watched the Western left undercut the Palestinians, and then when you undercut their demand, the proper demand for justice, equal right under the law, then you throw the Palestinians who support a one-state solution under the bus. Because you give the impression that the Palestinians who want equal rights are radicals. Because you as elected say, oh my God, I don't support a one-state solution. I believe there should be two states. Why do people believe there should be two states? And this is something that Marianne Williamson said before. This is something that Bernie Sanders said before. Because there are racists who inherently believe that Arabs cannot coexist with Jewish people. So they believe that Jewish people should have another state because the Arabs can't control themselves, even though Palestinians have been coexisting with Jewish people for centuries before Israel. You guys see why they don't invite me on shows now anymore? You guys see why I'm not invited on the Hill anymore? You guys see why, even though I've been chomping at the bit at Tim Pool, I've been ratioing Tim Pool, I've been calling out Alex Jones on Twitter. None of these motherfuckers will ever have a conversation with me. Look at my Twitter. I've been going after these motherfuckers, ratioing them. Well, I wouldn't say ratio because they got a big audience. I mean, I'm getting like 1,000 tweets calling out their hypocrisy. And they never fucking invite me on. Because after studying the science of Marxism, of anti-imperialism, I see through the hypocrisy of the West like I never did before. I see through these Zionists and these fucking cowards, these professional managerial class cowards who are afraid to call out Zionism. I am revoking all your doctorate degrees. If you had a master's degree, you got a doctorate degree, and you part of the professional managerial class, and you can't debunk Zionism the way I am, you don't fucking deserve your degree. If you're out here condemning Palestinian resistance, if you're out here supporting the two-state solution, if you're too much of a coward to support Palestinian resistance, give me your master's. Give me your doctorate. You are a child. It's game time, my friend. I have covered this issue for years. I knew that this was the end game. We're in the end game, my friends. The people in Gaza get genocided or they don't, which I think they will. Because the Western left failed again. Because they don't understand why you should support a one-state solution. People don't understand why I asked Marianne Wilson that question. Remember, Marianne Wilson asked to come on my show. So you think I was going to ask her easy questions? No, I wanted to see if you're actually an intellectual, if you understand the difference between a one-state and two-state solution. And if you don't, your master's degree is mine. Your master and your doctorate degree is mine. 2024 is the year RBN is evoking doctorate degrees. So I'm glad that Breonna Joy Gray played this. I was extremely disappointed in Bree because remember, Breonna Joy Gray invited us on Bad Faith Podcast. Did she invite us on to? I thought like when she invited us on at first, I thought we was gonna have like it's gonna be like a post-duopoly show kind of like we're gonna riff, we're gonna talk about why Biden Democrats suck, we're gonna bash capitalism, we're gonna talk about the wars. No, Breonna Joy Gray brought us on to defend our criticism of Marianne fucking Williamson, and then she got into a big argument with CJ about Marianne, and I'm thinking like, bro, that was over half the fucking interview, and I'm like, bro, Bree, I wish we could talk about literally anything else other than us hurting your feelings because we criticize your fucking favorite candidate. And then remember, in the interview, she said that we was wrong. She edited, and then she said that we was wrong in calling Marianne Williamson a Zionist in our interview. She edited out and lied on us. And she harmed our credibility by saying that we falsely critiqued Marianne Williamson as being a Zionist. That is what Breonna Joy Gray did. And now she realized a year and a half later that I was right the entire time. If you guys think I'm wrong, look at our interview with Bad Faith. We spend over half the time defending our critique of Marianne Williamson. Like, bro, can we talk about anything else? Anything else? For real, look at the interview like a year and a half ago. I'm sitting there, maybe the whole interview, I talked for like 5 minutes. Because the whole interview is Bree arguing with CJ about fucking Marianne Williamson. So I'm glad you finally seen it. Like, I give you props for figuring out you was wrong and realizing that we was correct in the fact that Marianne Williamson was a Zionist. Now her whole audience sees it. So props for Bree for correcting that mistake that irked me. So I give her props for that, because it's something that irked me to death. I wish we would spend that time talking about the mutual aid shit that we do, for example. No, we spend that time talking about Marianne Williamson instead. But now her audience know that we all know that she's a Zionist. I gotta see. Hopefully Fiorella. Hopefully we get Fiorella in here, cause I got a few more stories that I get to. Maybe I gotta reschedule Fiorella. I thought she would be here by now. Oh Jesus! I think the time zone might have been confusing. I got to the end of the story. Hopefully Fiorella joins. I'll continue with the story, because I want to ask Fiorella about what's fucking going on in Russia. I don't see her yet. I mean, I'm always down to rant some more. You guys want to hear me rant some more? Let me message Fiorella. Sorry, I got a message her right now. I don't know why she's not here. Let me know if you need to reschedule. Got like one more story to cover. All right. So if Fiorella doesn't join, I think maybe, I don't know whether there's confusion or something. Maybe there's these things happen. You know what I mean? These things happen. Maybe there's miscommunication somewhere. I'm trying to figure out what Fiorella is, but if not, I'll finish my stories. I should probably just change the thumbnail. We had to reschedule. Actually, I had this fucking receipt up there forever. Damn, I was fucking ranting. Hey, so you guys say keep ranting. If you guys don't know, I was ranting because I was stalling for time. Maybe there was miscommunication. That happens all the time. It's all good. I don't know if maybe we got the wrong time zone. Like, she's in Moscow, so it's really hard to book Fiorella. So I'm sure there was probably just some confusion. Maybe she's running late. I read some super chats and I see how much more time I can stall for as we wait for our guests. If she don't join by the end of that story, I'll just add the thumbnail and the title and we reschedule. I'm not trying to clickbait. All right, let me read some super chats. I'm gonna get this other story prepared. I'm kind of I got kind of change my plans because Fiorella, something's going on here. So I gotta change my plans. There's an Unrest story I wanted to cover. I might cover that. Let me move this back up. We are live, my friends. All right, so I think I'm gonna cover this story I didn't get to earlier. As we wait. Oh, see, that's what I would fucking love to hear. Maybe I'll just read some chats today. Should I just do a chat stream because we don't got Fiorella here? Nick's rants radicalized me. That's why I don't understand the people who do this. You know, the people who just put the thumb in the air and try to see what direction the wind blow. If I were just saying stuff for money, I'll just be in car sales again. The only reason I'm even doing this is because I see the Overton window in this country so fucked up that I want to influence people. I want to bring people to my side. That's why I don't understand people who say shit for clicks. I generally don't understand that. I want to get people to support my opinion. I'll put this headline up because we're gonna talk about this soon. I'm organizing another segment too. We can read some chats. I gotta add another segment. I'm hoping Fiorella joins. Maybe there's confusion. Fiorella's a friend. There's probably confusion here. So let's read some super chats. It's too sad to even discuss. Just silence and mourning. Yeah, I'm sure this is the craziest time. I decided to get in this. Like, the Israel issue is another reason. I've seen the left fuck up so much. That's another reason we start RBN, the lack of black voices. I wanted to radicalize people. I'm the chaos agent of the Overton window. My job is to point out the contradictions of our society, decolonize people's mind, and I wouldn't even say drag them to the left, because what does that even mean anymore? That's what I used to say. I used to say I want to drag people to the left. But what does that even fucking mean? The left is a joke in the United States. I'm a socialist. That's why I say I'm a socialist, I'm a communist, even though that's not even good marketing strategy. You know how many people I probably turn off by saying that? But I have to distinguish myself from the left. The only way I can distinguish myself from the left is to do what people like George Galloway does. I'm not of the left. I am a socialist. I am a communist. I am of the left in the traditional sense, in the traditional origins of what it means to be on the left versus the right. I'm a history nerd. I talk about this all the time. The origin of what it means to be on the left is people who supported revolution, the people who supported radical anti-monarchy thoughts. So if you was anti-monarch, if you was a revolutionary, someone who supported the French Revolution, you supported massive change. That is what it used to be. That was the original meaning of what it means to be on the left. If you was someone who supported the monarchy, if you were someone who supported the current status quo, you were someone on the right because you wanted to conserve the status quo. Now, those original meanings have been completely fucked up now. They fucking mean nothing. You guys see why it's important to know history? Those terms have a historical meaning. That's why I still use it. People say, Nick, why you still use term left and right? Because they actually fucking mean something. They mean something. If you want to conserve the status quo, it usually means you're on the right. If you want to implement radical change, that generally means to be on the left. If you support authority, that generally what it means to be on the right. Now, if we have revolution and we have the dictatorship of the proletariat, and then you can make the argument that we become on the right because we want to protect the revolutionary status quo. That's why you can make the argument that many Stalinists are on the right because they succeeded in the revolution and then they wanted to uphold the status quo. That is what the original term means. But you gotta notice it means nothing no more. Means fucking nothing no more. So instead of saying I'm dragging people to the left, I'm dragging people towards revolution. I'm dragging people towards class consciousness. If you're too afraid to call yourself a socialist and communist because of social pressure, I understand you, boo-boo. But if you believe in union organizing, if you believe in revolution, like so many of you guys say, if you have the critique of capitalism that we do, because I believe in the open tent version of communism, where people are inherently communists, but then they had to have that shit beaten out of them. Marxism is just a critique of capital. Marxism is a critique of capitalism, and then how you apply that is based on your political ideology. So there are people who are Marxists who are Marxist-Leninists. There are people who are Marxists who have a Marxist critique of capital who then fall into anarchy. But people, because of McCarthyism, because of the Red Scare, because of social pressure, because of their white friends, they're afraid to call themselves a Marxist, even though what you do is literally Marxism. Marxism is a social, scientific critique of capitalism. And then where you fall is based on whether you want to be a mouse, whether you want to believe in Jusei ideology of the North Korea, whether you want to be a Marxist-Leninist. Fam, maybe we should talk about communist theory this morning. So people need to understand that I know what this term means. That's why I'm not afraid to use them. The people who usually say, I don't like labels, I don't like terms, it's because you don't know what they mean. And you're afraid of the unknown. Now, if you don't want to label yourself, that makes sense. But words have meaning, my friends. Words have meanings, my friends. So if you want people that are like, I don't want to come as a communist, I don't want to get in trouble with people. Okay, bro. But you understand that the critique that many people had of the COVID agenda is inherently a Marxist critique. The critique I had of the COVID agenda is that we can't trust the capitalists to make public health decisions when the profit motive is the only thing they care about. The reason why they pushed mandates on the population was because they were trying to make it so Pfizer can make $1,000 per second. So when I saw communists and socialists side with Pfizer and big corporations who only care about the profit motive, it confused the shit out of me. When I see people who are making a Marxist critique of the capitalist COVID agenda, it confused the shit out of me. But anyway, I'm going on random rants because I planned an hour today, and our guest We got to reschedule with our guest. So this is going to be a random ass rant stream, I guess. I do have another story that I can get to. I've been having these headlines up for too damn long. This is why I need a producer. I produce my own shows, my friend. Make sure you guys leave a like and comment. Not only do I leave good rants for you guys, I get good guests for you guys. I do fucking everything. No, the only exception I'll make is CJ. CJ helped me with Rumble. For some reason, I can't fucking set up Rumble. I'm a fucking boomer at heart, my friends. I suck with Rumble and Rofkin, all those fuck. It took me forever to learn YouTube. Like, the people who follow my old YouTube channel, Socialist MMA, my old Twitch, you guys saw what the fuck. My Twitch stream was a technological disaster. You know how long it took me to figure out how to do fucking YouTube and Twitch, let alone Rumble, Rofkins, Odysseys. I'm like, oh no, fuck that. CJ, if you can do that, that'd be great. I can't do it. Banger after banger after banger, my friends. All right, let's get back to it. I'm supposed to read super chats. This is one of the stories that I'm gonna cover about Russia and Putin blaming the West for the Moscow attack. And I wanted to ask Fiorella about that, and I will get her back on the show. I don't know if we have like a different, it's very possible that we had different time zones. You know what I mean? Maybe we got the time zones wrong because it's in the evening for her. That's why I'm going live in the morning. There was probably some massive miscommunication that what happened. But let me get back to super chats. And these are the stories. I'm trying to change the background because I had the same receipts up for a while. Actually, I'm gonna leave with this. Let's go to this Scott Ritter video. Yeah, I'll do Scott Ritter video. You already know I got receipts for days. So if one of my shows fall apart, you guys know I can fucking do a 2-hour stream just based on saved receipts I have. I can just go to my saved receipts and do a fucking impromptu show. Thank you for the $4.99. What? Very generous super chat and super sticker. I appreciate it. Another super sticker from Samuel. We got our RBN comrades in the morning. We know most of our people watch the replay, so we got our comrades in the morning. Probably getting some productive things done as they listen to this show. You guys probably that's what I used to work while listening to independent media. So hope you guys enjoying the show. Hope you guys getting some revolutionary education. Thank you for $5. You're in fine form this morning, my friends. Thank you, my friend. You guys know I shoot my hotspot videos in the morning. So I'm always naturally fired up in the morning. Thank you for $5, James Starks. I'm not trying to clickbait you guys. There was just miscommunication between me and Fiorella, I'm assuming. So I'm going to change the thumbnail probably. So it's not too clickbaity. The title and all that kind of stuff. Anyway, let me get this segment going. I see CJ, my unofficial producer is here. I need to toss CJ some bucks for helping me set up some Rumble, and I'm definitely gonna do that. I got you, CJ. Cause CJ in California, so he probably up early as hell. I got you, CJ. So I'm gonna leave with this Scott Ritter video because I'm like doing this segment. I'm playing it live because I was expecting to ask Fiorella about a lot of these questions. So let me play this Ritter video I found, and then I get into the segment.
Victoria knew.
Oh, no. All right. I wanted to cover this, but I guess I'll move on because I only had an hour. Sorry. I meant to interject this. The majority of Americans disapprove of Israel's military actions in Gaza. I had this up for a very long time, so I don't have to dive into it. Showing the poll has swapped on this. And the fact that Joe Rogan spoke on this is a sign of things to come. Joe Rogan, and this is the reason why I had this. This is why I had this receipt up after the Rogan story, was because I wanted to emphasize that Rogan is not brave. You know what I mean? He's not brave. He's saying what he's saying because he can't be a cowardly fence sitter anymore. We need to understand this. We need to stop giving props to these capitalists, to these people not in our class. He already sold out to Zionists. I have covered to you guys covered with you guys how Rogan sold out to Zionists, how he condemned Palestinian resistance, how he made fun of kids who were showing up to Palestinian protests. So why should we give Joe Rogan credit? We should make it clear that he's saying what he's saying because the people are putting pressure on Rogan. Stop giving these grifters credit. Do we need at RBN, do we need people to pressure us to get shit right? No, we're usually the people dragging people to the right side. Notice the people who does that versus the alternative. Notice the people who drag people to their position, who had to strengthen their conviction and their belief versus the people who like, oh man, I think people are against, it's a genocide. Oh, I guess people think it's a genocide. It's a genocide. I am deeply unimpressed with those people. So let's move on. I wanted to add that point. I'm sorry. I'm all over the place. I'm in shambles in the way. My show is completely changed live. So I wanted to add that point before I move on. That's why I went back. I didn't want to end my segment before making that point. So let's move on with the Russia story. I only planned an hour anyway. I managed to rant my way into an hour show, even though we had scheduling issues with my guests. So let's leave with this clip I saw with Scott Ritter, because Scott Ritter, this motherfucker has my energy. I don't know any other way to say it. Scott Ritter had a great critique of the Ukraine war, but he was part of the establishment. I saw him praise Trump before. My initial impression of Scott Ritter was he was great on issues of war, but he's still kind of milquetoast. That was and guys, I don't know if that was the correct assessment. That was my initial impression of Scott Ritter. Then we invited Scott Ritter on the show. And I don't know if Scott Ritter was doing this because he was on a channel called Revolutionary Blackout. But when we invited Scott Ritter on our show, this motherfucker sounded like any other member of RBN. This motherfucker sounded like he watched RBN since the inception of RBN. This motherfucker came on RBN and he was sounding like he was trying to outflank us to the left. So I'm sure that there's things I disagree with on Ritter, but everything I've seen from Scott Ritter recently, this motherfucker I'm trying to think the best way to say this. Because I was about to say he's repeating revolutionary rhetoric, but I wouldn't go that far. But he's definitely calling out the empire in a way that I'm not seeing a lot of the white dude bros. You guys see I criticize white America all the time. Like Scott Ritter is going way farther than these people I've been criticized. You know what I mean? The people who are too afraid to call Israel, the two people afraid to call out the United States empire. Ritter is straight out saying, no, we're the terrorist state. Israel's a terrorist state. They don't deserve to exist. Ukraine don't deserve to exist. So I am sure that Scott is to my right on a lot of issues. But I am going to be honest. I fuck with Scott Ritter's energy. So my initial impression of Scott may have been incorrect because I thought Scott was kind of milquetoast. But Scott, man, has been base. So let's play this clip. You guys going to see what I mean.
Nuland was aware that the United States had a program in place to disrupt the elections of Vladimir Putin using Ukrainian intelligence as the proxy. I think she was broadly aware that these Russian nationalists, these 5,000 Russian nationalists, were going to invade Belgorod and Kursk. She was aware of that. She was broadly aware that the Ukrainians were going to carry out acts of sabotage and violence inside Russia. To this, whether or not she knew the specific target, I can't say that, except to say that the statement of the U.S. Embassy specified concert centers, specified concert.
Oh yeah, by the way, let me add context if you don't know what he's talking about. Remember the story I covered in my initial coverage of the Moscow attacks? I explained how Victoria Nuland and many people in the State Department was like, hey man, we predict something bad is going to happen to Russia. And they was very specific about the fact that it could be a concert hall or public gathering. And Victoria Nuland said she has a special surprise for Russia. Once again, I wanted to ask Fiorella, who probably have more information than me on this, since she's on the ground. But I'm gonna show you guys what he said. I'm gonna show you guys some receipts, and then that'll be our coverage of this for today. But listen, this is Scott Ritter breaking down the West, and he, just like Putin, seems to implicate that this is definitely a Western plot of some time. And like I said, when I covered this, we don't really know who did this. The whole ISIS story doesn't really add up to me. When you look at the motives, we look at the people who have history of doing this, like Ukraine, the fact they launched attacks into Russia before, the fact that we had Ukrainian soldiers that was caught using ISIS logos and insignias on their military equipment. I think there's just more to the story. You know what I mean? And Putin believes so too. And you guys going to hear Scott Ritter give his theory on this. I don't want to spoil his opinion. So let's get back to it. I just want to give context to what he's talking about. So let's play it.
We're going to invade Belgorod and Kursk. She was aware of that. She was broadly aware that the Ukrainians were going to carry out acts of sabotage and violence inside Russia. To this, whether or not she knew the specific target, I can't say that, except to say that the statement of the U.S. Embassy specified concert centers. So, you know, what I'd love to do is subpoena her and get her before a congressional committee under oath and ask her these questions, because it would condemn not just her, but the entire Biden administration, and by extension, the entire United States, as a terrorist nation. I mean, we're the guys who claim that we fight a global war against terrorism. We have become the terrorists. I hope people understand that. We have become the terrorists. We are responsible for setting in motion events that culminate.
You guys see why I'm starting to fuck with Scott Ritter? We are the terrorists. How many veterans are willing to say that? How many people who would consider themselves patriots are willing to say that? Because Scott Ritter is one of the people who consider himself a patriot. But I believe there can be very noble forms of patriotism. The patriotism of trying to provide for your neighbors and to make your country better. The patriotism of flag bumping, the flag worshiping, fucking pledge allegiance to the flag patriotism is trash. The patriotism of wanting your country to appear to the values they claim they represent, I think, is noble. And I think Ritter is in that category. So this guy who labels himself a patriot is one to call the United States out as a terrorist. You guys see, this is why I kind of like Scott Ritter now. Because we need more white allies who are willing to say shit like this. Because I'm irritated by oh man, America is so great. We got 1,000 criticism of our countries, but we still believe America is the greatest country of all time. No, say this shit, man. That shit is so unimpressive to me. People say that. I want to hear this energy before you pique my interest, personally. So I'll play this part again because I think it was based, and then I'm going to get to some receipts regarding Russia's suspicion of who did this attack. And once again, you had the motives. You have Victoria Nuland. You have Ukrainian officials that say they want to launch more attacks into Russia, even Moscow. But anyway, let's finish. Have him finish his thought, and we can move on.
Questions, because it would condemn not just her, but the entire Biden administration, and by extension, the entire United States, as a terrorist nation. I mean, we're the guys who claim that we fight a global war against terrorism. We have become the terrorists. I hope people understand that. We have become the terrorists. We are responsible for setting in motion events that culminated in this horrific attack in Moscow. We are. If we didn't start things, if we didn't train the Ukrainian intelligence, if we didn't have a presidential directive to disrupt the elections in Russia, I want to remind you, to disrupt the elections in Russia. All this, the Russians are interfering with American elections. We have a presidential finding directing the CIA to disrupt the presidential elections in Russia, and America's going, so what? Guys, we're a terrorist nation, and Victoria Nuland knows this because she is a terrorist entity, and she should be held accountable.
Scott Ritter says the United States is a terrorist nation. You don't have to call yourself a communist for me to support you saying that. Scott Ritter doesn't call himself a communist, but Scott Ritter is going around telling people that America is a terrorist country. He's doing exactly what I want him to do. Do I need you to call yourself a communist? This is exactly what we need. We need people to acknowledge the enemy. The terrorist is the United States. The terrorist is Israel, not Hamas. The terrorist is the Azov Banderite regime in Ukraine, not Russia. Now, this is where things get interesting because I covered these Moscow attacks when it first happened. I had very limited amount of receipts at the time, but I found some interesting stuff. For one, you have Russia and Putin that say, yeah, we believe that ISIS played a part in it. Yeah, technically there was ISIS fighters, huh? But they're not the fucking masterminds behind this. You mean ISIS who completely disappeared? Remember Trump used to take victory? He took a victory lap. Remember when Trump said, we destroyed ISIS? And then every single Republican candidate for office was running ads. We destroyed ISIS. We destroyed ISIS. And then white people was like, yeah, I'm going to vote for Trump because he destroyed ISIS. And all of a sudden, ISIS is back. And people don't ask questions about that. I thought you destroyed ISIS, Trump. And now they saying ISIS is doing attacks in Moscow. Interesting. If you destroyed ISIS, wouldn't they be attacking us? I thought we destroyed ISIS. If we destroyed ISIS, wouldn't they attack a United States ally? I don't know, Israel, for example. Kind of weird that ISIS never attacked Israel. Kind of weird, isn't it? You would think that if Trump destroyed ISIS, that they would take vengeance by going after Israel. It'd be a great time for them to go after Israel. Now they got Hezbollah, Ansarullah going after them. It'd be a great time to go after Israel. Nope, they decided to go after Moscow though. But people think they're the mastermind. Putin says Islamic extremists raided council hall, but attack masterminds are yet to be found. Russia says it is hard to believe Islamic State could have launched Moscow attack. Essentially, anyone with a functioning brain understands this. Anyone who understands geopolitics understands this. We know that the Islamic State may have played a part in this. People need to understand nuance. They may have played a part in it, but they are absolutely not the masterminds. Once again, for the new viewers, I believe there probably was a scheduling conflict. I apologize. I wasn't trying to clickbait. I think there was probably a scheduling conflict, miscommunication. I'm going to reschedule Fiorella. So I apologize for that. And then I found this. I'll see what other receipts we can find because this is interesting. Oh, Jesus Christ. Y'all really hold this. Oh, Jesus Christ. If this is true, I just fact check this. If this is true, I see multiple accounts tweeting about this. I got to fact check this. Breaking. The investigation has data confirming the receipt of significant sums of money in cryptocurrency from Ukraine to the perpetrators of the terrorist act in Crocus, reports the investigative committee. Here's another tweet. Breaking. Russia's investigative committee says it obtained evidence of link between Crocus attackers and Ukraine. I know there's no way you can find that shit on Google. Let's see. Let's see if I can find an article. Russia investigation. I'm seeing this all over Twitter. I'm trying to see if it's real. So here's an article about the fact that it was investigating it. But we already knew that they had investigators and looking into it. Chat, is that true? I found this live, so I am doing my due diligence as a journalist here. So I'm doing my due diligence. I'm trying to fact check this to make sure this is true. I'm trying to find other sources. Let me know in the chat what you guys see as well. But they're saying that Russia has evidence. Let me see if I can find some more shit on Twitter. They said it was paid in cryptocurrency. Is there anything else? Let me see. That's interesting. Ukraine. Let's put Ukraine, Moscow, see if we can find something. Look, everyone's tweeting about it. It's confirmed that Moscow terrorists received a significant amount of cash and cryptocurrency from Ukraine. Oh, Jesus Christ. So that at least 3 people I saw on Twitter tweet about it. Oh, this is, I'm getting a, let's see, this, I'm gonna look at my hotspot. Oh, Jesus Christ. Let me read some of these chats I see. Let me see if you guys can help me out here. That's a huge story if true. I'm just doing my due diligence. I don't believe anything. I'll just read as well. I always like to fact check everything too. But based on what I'm seeing, there is early reports that Ukraine paid these terrorists, which, like I said in my hotspot video, when you look at the people who have the motive, the people who did it before, it makes sense that Ukraine is involved in some way, especially since talk about supporting the Ukraine war is dying down. But we 1 hour in, so I guess this is speculative news. But we 1 hour in. I think we can wrap up here. I'll read some super chats. Thank you for the super chat. Almir, the gunmen were on the phone with someone in Ukraine when they were driving to Ukrainian border. Wow. I believe it, but I gotta prove it. You know what I mean? So I will tell you guys, I believe the story, but I gotta prove it. I believe it's possible, but we need hard evidence. Thank you for 999 back from the road. As a veteran of illegal wars and a Marxist-Leninist based as hell, I appreciate what you're doing here and for putting Ritter on. He has held a solid line for years. As usual, y'all cut through the bullshit. Well said. I get people once again. I have the approach of I am strictly coalition minded when it comes to politics. Like, this country isn't ripe yet for a communist revolution. Our job is to prepare the country for communist revolution through education, through direct action. In the meantime, I made the personal decision, the personal calculation that as we prop up and we prepare for revolution through mutual aid and educating the populace, in the meantime, we form coalitions to get victories for the proletariat and for peace movements. Do anyone disagree with that strategy? And I'm asking communists more than anyone else. Because I see communists on Twitter who I don't think are real say stupid shit all the time. Like, their strategy is absurd. Let's have a working class coalition, but you're not allowed to talk to that person. You're not allowed to talk to that person. You're not allowed. Hell, that guy's a veteran. You're not allowed to talk to him. You're not allowed to talk to the MAGA person. You're not allowed to talk to that person because he voted for Biden before. There are a lot of people who I think are CIA, man, who are like Twitter communist ops, who they claim they read the same theory as me, but it doesn't make sense that you read State and Revolution and you come to the same strategic conclusion as me. You know what I mean? When I see communists and Marxists engage in the cultural war, when we are supposed to despise the cultural war and we're supposed to turn the proletariat away from capitalist distraction as laid out in so much communist and Marxist theory. And I see Marxists and communists go against things I see in theory all the time. Now you guys see why I decided to go my own way. You guys notice how me and Rome, we decided to make our own organizations. My opinion of CPUSA, communists in the left is so low. I feel like have you guys read State and Revolution? That's just my general thought. Because I promise you guys, there are going to be a few communists that are going to be very upset that I said anything nice about Scott Ritter. These people exist. They try to give me pressure. They are unserious, and I don't take them seriously. Unless you have a mutual aid organization, unless you're educating the masses, I believe they are ops, bro. Like, these people say stuff that makes no sense. And there's a reason why a lot of people think communism and socialists, they have a completely distorted view of that. That's because of the CIA socialists and communists who give Americans the wrong idea of what a communist and socialist is. They tie a communist and socialist with Democrats, with liberal culture wars. They tie communism with liberal culture wars when communists despise liberal culture wars, or at least we're supposed to. Like, the more I learn theory myself, I told you guys, I'm not perfect. Like, I only been a theory reading Marxist for maybe 3 years. I got a lot to learn from people like Q. Anthony Ali and many others. That's why I am astounded by, even though I have a lot to learn, that there's so many communists and socialists that go directly against the theory I have read, the strategies I do know. For example, people get upset because I said nice things about Haas before and other social conservatives. Do you guys know that the Bolsheviks, do you guys know that communists in Southeastern Asia, communists in the global South, a lot of them are Christian evangelicals? Like, people don't have any idea about this stuff in the United States and the West. They think communism is liberal culture wars. There are communists in the global South who don't support abortion. They are Christian. They are Muslim. They are socially conservative. But according to United States communists and leftists, you got to cut anyone out who is a social conservative. So if it was up to them, you wouldn't be organizing with the black evangelical Christians who support Lula and socialist and politicians in Brazil. You guys understand how once you understand global politics, when you read history, when you study the history of global communist movements, that's when you get extremely confident about moving away from the professional managerial class. You get extremely confident in rejecting the progressive left in this country. When you start realizing how much of a joke they really are, you realize that the working class in this country is fucked because of those people. Oh shit, CJ. Big shout out to my boy CJ. Oh Jesus, my unofficial producer, I should say. He sent me this in the chat. Look at our boy CJ coming in the clutch. So that's my rant. And what I found very exciting before I get to this article, what I find very satisfying is like the more conservative or liberal-minded people who thought they hated communists. They thought they hated communists, but they follow and love my work, and they tell me like, bro, I thought communism was like liberalism. Like, there's so many of these people that like. Remember, I had a libertarian. I think it was Lion Cosgrove from the Gray Zone. He was like, bro, I would vote for a communist like you way before I vote for a liberal or Republican. And that's Lion Cosgrove. He's a libertarian from the Gray Zone. So a lot of these people who have extreme anti-communist beliefs, they got those anti-communist beliefs because of the Western left not understanding how to sell and how to live as a Marxist. Because Western leftists turned communism into liberalism, a lot of social conservatives and a lot of Americans started showing disdain towards it because they thought that what it was. So now that they see RBN, they see me, they see Rome, they see CJ, they see our whole group, and they're like, oh shit, I didn't know that what a Marxist was. They thought a Marxist was that white liberal college woman with purple hair. And I think, even though I have a disagreement with Haas, I think Haas served that purpose as well. Haas is very brash. He puts a lot of hyper-masculine beliefs. But it's very important for us, for people to see that communists aren't these weak, liberal, feckless fucks that we've been painted as. I disagree with Haas on some takes, but people need to see that communists are Muslims like Haas, socially conservative, you know what I mean? The idea that Americans have about Marxists is completely distorted. The Black Panthers, an organization that many conservatives now would praise, they was a Marxist-Leninist organization. You have people who tie communism, Marxism with white privileged college kids, but the true most successful Marxist-Leninist organization of our time was the Black Panthers. And even the Black Panthers was infiltrated. Even the Black Panthers wasn't perfect. They was infiltrated. And we need to learn from what happened to them. That's why I'm extremely harsh on these people who spread PMC talking points, because they had FBI infiltrators, CIA infiltrators. You have former Black Panthers who are now doing fundraisers with Zionists. Actually, let me see if I can find. Oh, I really hope I can find this receipt. Fuck, because they were just a dialogue in Black Twitter. Fuck, I really hope I can find it. Hold, guys, please. Here it is. Here it is. Here it is. This was just discourse in Black Twitter. This here, look at this. I'm gonna show you guys this unplanned. This was giant discourse on Black Twitter, and I'm gonna show you guys what I mean. None of these organizations are perfect. We got to learn from the mistakes of revolutionary movements of the past. So the reason why we are so hard and we demand people to get issues right, the reason why we call out CIA talking points is because organizations got infiltrated in the past. So we're trying to prevent that from happening now. Look at this. At 16, Yvette Stevens joined the Black Panther Party. She was responsible for selling the Black Panther newspaper and helping start the free breakfast program for children. You might have known her as another name, Chaka Khan. So Chaka Khan did good work before, but Chaka Khan is an infiltrator. Here's Chaka Khan, who now raises money for genocidal Zionists in her late age. She's now raising money for Zionists. You have former Black Panthers who endorsed and campaigned for Kamala Harris. But people are surprised when they hear the rant that me and Ron went on about our Black elders. You was either a Black revolutionary or you was murdered. You was a Black revolutionary murdered, or you was someone who did good work before and then you sold out. Why should we forgive these people who sold out like this? And this is a big part of narrative that a lot of people forget. She did great work as a Black Panther, but she was an infiltrator. That's why at RBN, we're the only channel that went over the CIA infiltration tactics that they use. Remember the CIA? I'll pull it up again. The CIA infiltration tactics. I was like, I had tweets about this that went viral multiple times. Because I'm the only people that talk about it, because I understand this is a giant problem. People wonder why many people was against forced to vote. This is why. People forget that the Black Panther, the left movement, they get infiltrated. And I do, once again, we got our good friend Fiorella. I see you join us. Once again, I do think there was a miscommunication on time. I'm glad I was able to rant my way into an hour straight. So we're going to have Fiorella join us, actually. So I'm glad he was able to make my friend. We actually do have, so I did clickbait you guys. I'm happy about that. It wasn't clickbait. So I'm going to introduce our guest here soon. I have a few things I want to ask you. I was just ranting for like 70 minutes, essentially. So this is the CIA talking points we always share. And this is one of the many Black Panthers who survived, who later turned out to be a sellout. So what I said, I'm glad we actually don't have to wrap up. I was about to wrap up, but I'm glad I don't have to now. We have our good friend. We have a fantastic journalist. We have Fiorella Isabel, great journalist, RT, geopolitical analyst. Thank you for joining us here at RBN. Fiorella, thank you.
Thank you for having me. Yeah, you know, I sympathize with you on the whole like time situation because it really,
Yeah,
it really depends on where you are. And when you try to schedule interviews, you're gonna like figure out where everybody is. So I totally get it. And
yeah, for sure. And I definitely had to hear from you because there's been a lot of crazy shit going on in Russia and Moscow. Always good to have you on the show. It's always interesting to hear your perspective. And Convo Cows, they do great work. Fiorella do great work exposing uh, United States propaganda. And one thing that you and Pasta did, and one thing that you guys are known for, is I saw Pasta. Correct me if I'm wrong. I'm going on my memory here. He was serving as an election observer in. Am I getting the correct or was it Honduras? I know you guys go to Venezuela. You guys do election observer stuff all the time. I want you to talk about that, but I also want you to talk about the Russian elections because you already seen what the West been saying about it. We do propaganda report segments, so I've been watching a ton of corporate news, unfortunately, recently, and of course, every single one of them been like, "Oh, this Russian election is election in name only. Putin won 90% of the vote," and they are so smug about it. They just paint the picture that the Russian elections are rigged. But if you say the United States elections are rigged, they call you a conspiracy theorist. So I want to float that to you very broadly. Your critique of United States elections and your thoughts on what you've been hearing regarding the West and what they've been saying about Russia elections versus the reality as you know it. So I toss it to you, Fiorella. Thank you for joining us today.
right. So it's just funny hearing the US complain about anybody else's elections because our elections are shit. And you know that very well. I mean, if our elections were actually valid, we wouldn't have people that everybody hates in Congress and in the Senate. We wouldn't have, you know, Joe Biden as president. We wouldn't have had any of that if our elections were valid, but they're not. So, first of all, we need to obviously take care of our own elections before we point the finger. Second, when I witnessed Russia's elections, and this is something I've been wanting to do for a very long time, I saw that Russia has a very standard procedure about how they do things. They're actually far more advanced than we are in the US. So, for example, they have like a blockchain type of online voting system, which I'm not a fan of like electronic voting necessarily, unless it is backed by something that is paper trail or has some sort of like a check system. And in this case, for example, you can look at Venezuela's elections. They are electronic. They have electronic voting machines. However, they do have a chain of custody. They have a backed system where you can check their elections. They also have public counting. And so one of those reasons is why I'm not saying, you know, pen and paper is the only way. Although for me, a lot of the times with all the hacking and stuff, it is preferred. I think that Russia's elections were they use a specific system. It's I think it was the DRE system. You can choose to vote online, but you have to have ahead of time. You have to fill it out. Otherwise, you have to go into your own place of voting where you are registered, and everybody's registered. Everybody has an ID from the moment you're born. You have well, after you're a child, I think after 12 years old, you have some sort of ID, and your ID is your Russian passport. So you don't have like a driver's license, you have like a Russian passport and a driver's license. It's two separate things. And then on top of that, if you want to travel outside of Russia, you have another passport. So they have like multiple forms of ID. But in Russia, it's impossible not to have an ID because they need to know where you're registered at. So this is why people aren't homeless for the majority, because they all have a place of residency, and you can't just go about living your life without not having a place of residency. So that in there takes care of the whole ID situation. So when you go into the voting center, you show your ID, which is your Russian passport. They look you up, and if you registered to vote in by like a sort of paper ballot type of thing, you do that. If you wanted to vote electronically in this new voting machine they have, you do that. Now, they have used this before, but it's now more prevalent in, say, Moscow. It is not prevalent everywhere in Russia. For example, in the new territories like the Donetsk Republic, Lugansk, and the new territories that voted for the presidency the first time, they just use paper ballots because they don't have the technology there yet. So all of these were hand counted and verified. So it's interesting to me, if I were going to rig an election, you would look at those territories. Why? Well, because those territories are hand counted paper ballots, and it
Right.
would be more difficult to try to rig those. And in those territories, Putin actually won by a greater percentage than he did in Moscow. Overall, in Russia, he got 87% of the vote. In Moscow, I believe it was about a little under 70%, because Moscow is the most, I would say, liberal, one of the more Western cities, along with St. Petersburg. So he's definitely going to get lower there. But outside of that, the people of Russia supported the SMO, the Special Military Operation. The people of Russia supported what was happening. In fact, the Communist Party of Russia, which is the second largest party, as we all saw, even though it's by a long shot at this point because there's other parties coming along, it's still the second largest party, the second most popular. That party had been asking and wanting Putin to go into Ukraine a long time ago, way before anybody else had wanted them to. And they actually obviously came in second place, but I mean, it's a little bit different because it's been a while since the Soviet Union and things have changed. But what you can see about all of these different parties they agree on is they have united in terms of standing by Russia in their own country, and really sticking together in terms of what Russia is doing by facing NATO, because ultimately that's what's happening at this point. And so the issues that were number one on people's minds were obviously going to be economic issues, domestic issues like in any other country, but also the war, right? The war in Ukraine, and that dominated, and Putin has been the president. So it's no surprise to me that he won. I think what is surprising to people is the margin that he won. And I think it's hard for us as Americans to wrap our head around it when we have a voting turnout of less than like 40 something percent, whereas Russia has an over 60% voting turnout. And we have, and that's in general, but in specific cities, it's greater. We can only dream of having this turnout, of having that sort of political excitement. We don't have any of that. So if you apply our American political, system and our political just a thought process into any other election, it's going to look like every election is rigged, because we don't know what it's like to actually be excited about a candidate since maybe Bernie Sanders, and where that went. So all of that's just, so we're completely, I guess, we're completely just depressed as a society in the US about our election system because it's not valid. So we're not going to get those numbers. So that's what they used to say Putin is forcing people, that all these people are, this is all fake. And, because Putin has been president for a long time. But if you go back, Nick, and you look at FDR, for example, who was a popular president for his time, despite many of his faults, the reality is we could have had a system like that where we re-elected people by popularity, whereas in the US we change presidents, but we don't actually change the foreign policy or anything that happens in terms of war. And I've asked several Russian analysts, what will happen if, say, Donald Trump becomes president? And they're like, well, they might change some things domestically, but is it going to change anything in terms of the foreign policy? They're like, no, it's not going to change that. And Putin and Russia has said it's not going to matter if it's Trump or Biden. This is still going to be the same type of foreign policy from the US.
Now, look at this headline and the message that is repeated in the overall narrative from MSNBC, for example. I've been watching an unhealthy amount of morning show. I'm almost obsessed with the propaganda they do, because they paint this picture that Moscow is a hellhole, like a police state, if you will, where people actually hate Putin. And they actually have a desire to express their hatred of Putin, but they can't because they are so repressed. So, Fiorella, I'm glad. Are you able to confirm that it's real? Let me read this headline. I will get your thoughts on that. Because look, this is like the narrative, right? That's going on. Russian elections garner congratulations and condemnation. Condemnation. allies of Russian president have been quick with applause, but Western leaders denounce results as illegitimate. But if you deny election results in the United States, that's apparently the worst thing that you could ever possibly do. That's why Trump is a unique fascist terrorist, right? Do you have anything you want to add before I move on, Fiorella?
Yeah, just, it's funny because a lot of people speak out against Putin, even people that work for like Russian state media. They say, "Oh, I don't like this about him. They don't like that about him," and it's fine. There's a lot of people that's
I thought they get pushed out windows for doing
that. No, it's like normal to say how you feel about him. It's kind of interesting, but the reality is a lot of people have the final main thing for them is they understand what's happening here, what's at stake, and I think that's something that is hard again for us to wrap our head around because we've never been in that situation. The people of Russia have been, have suffered millions and millions of lives lost from the Great Patriotic War, and then the 2014 Maidan coup that led to many lives lost, and now this war in Ukraine that's also leading to just a complete vilification of the entire Russian people and Putin. So instead of that making them divided, it's actually made people come together. Obviously, there's going to be dissent. Obviously, there's going to be people that say, well, maybe he should, allow marijuana. Maybe he should be a little bit more modern, whatever the case may be. But it's not enough to surpass the overall majority of people who are like, yeah, we need a strong leader. And if you look at what Russia was towards the end of the Soviet Union and in the early 2000s, a lot of Russians can tell you, Russians who left and have come back, it is night and day. And the image that the United States and Europe are exporting to you all in the United States about Russia is that it is a gas station with nuclear weapons, that it's completely, underdeveloped, that it's nothing. But once you come to Moscow and you see actually what it is and how people live, this is why people like Tucker and others are dumbfounded. And I'm not saying even Tucker gives the best representation in this interview, because the interview with Putin was extremely basic and extremely, for normies, you could say it was enlightening, but for a lot of us who have been following this, it was just very basic questions that I think somebody else could have done a better job of, like, who understands like Russian culture, because again, this is Tucker's first time in Russia, and there's definitely different cultural differences that really showed up in that interview if you look for them. And for one of them being the fact that Russians are extremely aware of history, and they function from a historical perspective, versus like Americans, we come from like, okay, what's going on right now? Tell me, give me the answer right now. It's like, no, you need to understand the historical context of everything and where this came from. And so what you have is a juxtaposition of a point of view that people in Russia, and not only Russia, you could expand this to China, you could expand this to other countries in the global south, they have been drastically affected by Western hegemony. So they've been forced in a way to understand what it means to be sanctioned, what it means to have all these wars. And they have been forced to understand when they happen and the results of them, things that in the United States, the majority of the population hasn't really had to care about. And so it really exposes you to a different way of thinking.
Yeah, and I actually wanted to ask you this. This is an example of one of the headlines I'm talking about regarding the harsh suppression. But critics make prejudice known despite harsh suppression. Said the biggest fucking police state that humanity has ever seen, that is building cop cities all over the nation. Like, everyone talk about Atlanta cop cities. You guys know there's multiple cop cities popping up, all in Democrat cities, by the way. Now I want to ask you this because I want to know how accurate my analysis has been. I talked to Zoya, who was born in the Soviet Union, who knows a lot about Russia. And this is why I find it weird that Cornel West called us the Jimmy Dore plantation because we are too soft on Russia. That is what he said. And I will never forget it. We're the Jimmy Dore plantation because we're too soft on Russia. Even though Russia has all the policies that social democrats are fighting for. Like everything that Cornel West is fighting for, they have in Russia. And the reason why I'm saying this is I want you to fact check me in a kind of way. Because the same thing that they're fighting for in the United States, healthcare, They have in Russia, right? Paid maternity leave. They have in Russia, and I'm asking this as a question. And I'm not seeing the amount of homelessness in Moscow and in Russia. That's why it's weird to me that Cornball West and the Bernie Sanders left have unhinged Russia-phobia when they have all the policies that you are fighting for in this country. So correct me if I'm wrong on it, because that's been what I've been saying for a while. And if you correct me, that help me be better. So did I get anything wrong on that? What do you want to add to that?
No, Nick, you're right. I mean, so Russia, it's very interesting. I actually had a conversation with Andrei Martyanov, who's a Russian analyst. And I asked him, so what exactly is Russia's system right now? Because I've had this conversation with multiple people, and we have all come to this conclusion. Russia's system still holds huge elements from the Soviet Union. And I, for one, obviously, don't think Russia would be where it is now without the structure of the Soviet Union, because you're talking about a structure that made it so workers were first, so that schooling and healthcare and all of these things were available to the population. And that has stuck by Russia, in spite of the fact that it is a capitalist country right now. But it is what I would describe right now as a mixed economy in terms of its economic structure. For example, you have the healthcare industry that has a private sector, but it has a largely government-run sector. So if, for example, you don't have a job, right? You happen to not have a job or an income that is sustainable, the government will provide you with free healthcare. If you do have a job, however, your employer pays for the healthcare. You don't get deducted for that healthcare. So either way, you're not paying for healthcare. If you want better healthcare or a specific doctor that isn't covered by your employer, you can pay extra to go to a hospital that's not part of your coverage, but you're still going to get treated. It's not like here in the US where you know they're like, oh, you're not covered, so sorry, we can't treat you, that sort of thing. No, you'll get treated.
Russia was an authoritarian hellhole, though. Like,
I mean, that's what we're told.
Yeah. In this country, I don't mean to interrupt, but I want to make this point. In this country, you go fucking bankrupt.
Yep.
I don't have healthcare, guys. I went over. I explained before. I had to stop training because I did something to my knee. I don't know what I did because I couldn't get it checked out. I tore something. Nick, people are like, Nick, what happened to your knee? I don't know. I was just resting, icing it. I never had a diagnosis. In this country, you go bankrupt. How is that not an authoritarian hell compared to Russia? But go ahead, finish your point, Fiorella.
No, I just want to say, for example, I had a friend of mine that broke their knee and had to go to the hospital and went in an ambulance, and they didn't even pay for the ambulance. Here, it's in the US, it's like $10,000 per ambulance ride. So people are taking Ubers. We know this, right? And for me, I was sick this past winter last year, and I just had to pay maybe like $100 and something to like go to the doctor, get an X-ray, also get like some sort of like very advanced like neti pot that went all over and like cleared me out in 2 seconds, and it was just very, very quick. There is like a bureaucracy that is reminiscent of the Soviet Union, so you kind of have to either have patience in terms of knowing the language or figure out, you know, what it is, and you go to one doctor here, one doctor there. But at the end of the day, it's not necessarily slow. It's not like you're waiting for hours, but it is like you have the ability to, for example, for me, I didn't go to a place where my work covered my healthcare. I went somewhere else because I happened to be somewhere else, and it still was extremely affordable without me using my insurance. If I had been using my insurance, it would have been free. But because I didn't use my insurance, it was like $100 or something, which is like nothing because it's insane. And I was like flabbergasted.
Go somewhere and only pay $100 and you have no insurance. That is literally insane. Like, you know how long, guys, it's been since I've been to the doctor? I haven't been to the doctor maybe 10 years. Like, because I went to the doctor one time and it was like, you gotta pay. It was like a ridiculous amount, and I had insurance. Like, I paid more than that with insurance. I couldn't imagine how much they would ask me to pay. And remember, that was 10 years ago. So I was on my mom, and I was on my mom's insurance for Obamacare for a very long time. After I turned 26, I haven't had healthcare since then. I'm like, I'm not paying for that shit. My strategy is to make sure I stay fucking healthy, and when I go, I go. I'm not fucking doing that shit.
That
It's
was my
ridiculous.
strategy, Nick. When I was in the States, I luckily I had a good immune system. I didn't really get sick, you know. But what happens when you do get sick or when something happens? I had a friend of mine recently fall and break her leg at work, and luckily she had, what is it, workers' comp. But still, that whole process is just so difficult to get through. And that's only because you're in workers' comp. But if something happens to you and you don't have insurance, or you have, you know, the cheapest insurance, you're out of luck because you have to still pay a lot out of pocket. And this is people in Russia don't understand this, and people in pretty much any other country I've talked to Europeans too, they don't get it. They're like, "What do you mean you don't have, like, you can't pay this?" We're like, "Yeah, we can't. We don't have insurance. Like, we literally, people would rather die or not go to the doctor because they literally cannot afford it. It is like thousands and thousands of dollars of debt, and they don't understand why we have this, like, very barbaric, very primitive system. Because it's like, we're the United States. We talk about Russia being a gas station, right? Being completely backward and all these things, yet they have healthcare and university as well. It's extremely affordable here. In fact, if you're a foreigner and you come as a student, the only requirement is basically for you to learn Russian. And in your first year, if you apply and you get accepted, you learn Russian in like your first year, and after that, you go into your profession, and it's free. Like, you literally do. I know several people doing that right now.
If we did that in this country, they will scream open border. You guys think we got open border? You know what other countries do? Like, go ahead.
That's the thing. That's the thing here. Like, they have, like, they want immigrants because Putin is specifically. Now, there are other factions in Russia that are very nationalistic and anti-immigrant, and that's sort of come out from this whole Crocus thing. But Putin himself and other factions want people to come in because Russia is a huge country. It's a huge landmass, and there's not that many people here in comparison to the size. So they want people to come. They want people to have babies. It's a completely different system than in the US, where everybody's like, wait a minute, don't have kids. Oh, okay, you can't afford to have kids. Good. There's too many people here. There's not enough resources. It's like the opposite is going on here. But it is a matter of growth versus degrowth. And I think that's also one important aspect to point out in terms of where the rest of the world is going, including China, you know, because they're talking about growing, they're talking about providing. In the US, we're talking about, hey, you can't use paper straws, you can't do this, you can't do that, you can't drive here. Meanwhile, you have celebrities, even the ones people like Taylor Swift, but, you know, having their own private jets go like a few miles, and that produces far more pollution. But you and the rest of the population have to pay the cost by going green. So there's just a lot of hypocrisies going on in the States.
Yeah. I want to ask you about the attacks in Moscow. I was covering earlier, I was ranting kind of in an incoherent way, you know, in some senses about this. I covered this before, and I was just using critical thinking because, especially when I first covered this story, the information was so limited at the time. So I was using critical thinking, like, you know, how prosecutors are supposed to think, like, who has the motives, who has the history of doing this kind of stuff. And now our boy CJ sent me this story that I literally digged up in the middle of the stream. I was fact checking it, trying to see how accurate this was, doing my due diligence. So before we dive into this, once again, big shout out to CJ who helped me produce today. Before we get into this receipt that I'm still trying to process, I want to get your broad thoughts about what attacks. I've seen theories from Putin. I've seen theories from different analysts. Putin is not convinced that this is ISIS attack. That's the line from Russian state media. I've seen a lot of people with a lot of different theories. I want to hear from you. What do you personally think about this attack? Is the West involved? Do you think that's a conspiracy theory?
No, I think that the West is involved. First of all, the West is involved because Ukraine's involved. The 4 assailants that tried to escape via Bryansk, which is like on the border of Ukraine, immediately these guys had contacts in Ukraine. Okay, they had people there on the other side. This is a war. It is very difficult to go. Well, yeah. Well, it's extremely hard to go through the borders of Ukraine during this time. Like, you have to have some sort of reason, some sort of like authorization. So these guys weren't just going to cross the border like nonchalantly, tra-la-la, we're going to Ukraine. So they had to have contacts on the other side. So that, number one, puts them, okay, if Ukraine's involved, we know that the United States or the UK are somehow involved. Why? Well, because Ukraine doesn't breathe without the United States telling them to. They're not in charge of anything. Ukraine is a proxy, and we all know this. So
They get all
who
their
is
intelligence from the United States and UK, right? But go ahead. I think they get all their intelligence from the United States
yeah,
and UK. But
and that
go
was
ahead.
admitted. That was admitted, Nick, in a New York Times article. The New York Times freaking admitted that the CIA and the intelligence apparatus of multiple countries, including the UK, have been embedded in Ukraine's military for some time now. And they have been helping out Ukraine in terms of logistics, in terms of drones, in terms of all of the intelligence that it takes to find and attack Russian positions and Russian weapons. That was admitted in a New York Times article this year. So that's not surprising. So if you have Ukraine involved, you know that the West is involved somehow. Now the question about ISIS-K, because that was the whole thing, right? Okay, so ISIS claimed responsibility. The US was the first to say, oh my goodness, ISIS is involved. ISIS. But who is ISIS? ISIS was created, funded, and radicalized by the CIA in Afghanistan and Iraq. Right now, currently, Syria and Russia are fighting actual Al-Qaeda affiliates in Syria and Iraq. They're fighting them right now. So why would ISIS attack somehow only the US's enemies? If you know what I mean, it doesn't make any sense. And Russia has been fighting ISIS-K along with Syria, and so this whole situation really stunk with them saying this is ISIS right away. So either way, the way I look at it is some analysts say, well, it is ISIS. You know, they recruited these ISIS affiliates because Tajikistan has some elements that are pro-Ukrainian in the country. And one of the people involved was a former Al-Qaeda ISIS affiliate, and so therefore this is ISIS. But it's not ISIS in the same vein as the United States points, like, oh, it's ISIS, we have nothing to do with it, it's just some terrorist group, right? No. At the end of the day, all roads lead to Rome. You have ISIS and you have the Ukraine involved. Well, either way, this is full circle here. You have the United States and UK intelligence apparatus involved in this. So there's no way on either end of the spectrum, whether you think it's ISIS-K or whether you think it's ISIS is involved, that the US and its intelligence apparatus isn't involved. Now, I want to say something about the people that were specifically targeted or set up to do this, right? So Tajikistan is a country close to Russia. It was part of the Soviet Union before. It is part of the organization of the central states near Russia. And basically, a lot of Tajiki people come to Russia. There's a huge percentage of them come to do blue-collar jobs, to do like immigrant jobs. We're talking about restaurant jobs, snow shoveling, cleaning, and they're Muslim in majority. And they also happen to be darker skinned, and speak a different language. There is already a barrier between them and some of the Russian population. There are some factions in the nationalist Russian parts of the political spectrum that are anti-immigrant, right? And right now, they're the ones that are saying, we need to stop Russia's, immigration issues, blah, blah, blah. We need to tighten our borders. It's the same as we have in the US. The problem with that is Putin is saying, no, we're not going to do that. We want people to come in. We want immigrants to come in because we need to grow the country. So right there, you see two diametrically opposed points of view. Now, Tajiks, if I was somebody that was a complete and total psychopath that wanted to, destroy and destabilize Russia from the inside, sow division and cause chaos, I would choose them as well as the people to commit this crime. Why? Well, because they're Muslim. They're brown, and they already have some sort of, people have some opinions for or against them already in Russia. So they would be the easiest people to go commit this attack, and largely easy to get because you have these connections in Tajikistan with ISIS-K. You also have the fact that these people are in need of money, and then you have the whole border situation, which could be turned around in Russia and cause division. So for several reasons is why I would choose them as the people that I would say, hey, I'll pay you, $5,500 and you go and do this. And that's what I think happened. I think that they were hired specifically to do this job. They were told, okay, we're going to pay you half, and then later on you're going to get half. But they were not meant to survive this attack. Now, these guys were not, suicide bombers. They didn't have the vest. They didn't even know how to do the salute properly. They weren't properly trained. You could see in the videos, unfortunately, if you watch them, they missed a lot of shots. This was all like some sort of planned event, yes. Was it orchestrated? Yes. But Putin himself and even Maria Zaharova said that we know who did this. We know that it was, some these fundamentalists, radical religious guys from Tajikistan. We know they did it, but who's actually behind the orchestration? And they concluded, the FSB, Russia's, security intelligence apparatus, concluded basically that, Ukraine and the West are behind this. So they know they're not, falling for this. I think this was an attempt to have some sort of 9/11 type of situation in Moscow, using the people that could be easily just like incite some sort of division within the country and have people go at their throats. And because they haven't been able to destabilize Russia on the battlefield through sanctions, Putin just won majorly in the election. So what else is left? What are they going to do? They have really no other options. So I do think that whether ISIS or not was involved, if ISIS was involved, it's not ISIS in the vain understanding of oh, it's just a bunch of terrorists that, they're just a bunch of radicals. It's no, it's groups that are directly connected to the US apparatus that were used to cause this attack in Russia and try to sow some sort of division. You also have to look, Nick, at none of this is happening in a vacuum. You look at what's happening in Gaza, you look at Israel's dismal popularity, its image is in the toilet. It's never going to be the same. And you have all of that happening at the same time. You have this whole anti-Muslim sentiment, this attempt, right, to say, oh, look, all these terrorists, blah, blah, blah. And what Israel is doing right now is completely in the back burner then. So you have so much going on. I don't think anything is happening in isolation right now. And I see this as a complete and total attempt by the West to try to destabilize Russia in this way.
Thank you for making me feel sane because I knew there was a lot of shady shit. That breakdown you did was spectacular, and it confirmed my suspicions in such a well put way. Thank you for that spiel. I'm gonna share just a few more things, and then we can begin to wrap up. I know you got a busy day as well. Here's a few things I found interesting. Now this is Vox here. ISIS-K, the group linked to Moscow terror attack, explain. Fam, I can guarantee you a few things in this world, but one thing I will guarantee you is that they are not going to explain you what ISIS is. One thing they are not going to do in this article is explain what ISIS is. So I think that's funny. Now look at this article. I found this headline as I was showing you guys receipts earlier. I found this funny. It wasn't planned. I just found this. Look at how they spin this already. Now I'm even more suspect. Not only was your breakdown amazing, but look how they're spinning this. Look how they spin this bullshit. Moscow attacks fuel concern over global ISIS-K threat growing under the Taliban in Afghanistan. You guys see how they're trying to use this as a way to get back into Afghanistan? They will never let a crisis, one that they manufactured or not, go to waste. One more last thing I want to share, and then I get your last thoughts, and we can wrap up. This is what I found literally live as I was ranting before you got here. I found this live looking for something else. I was like, wait, is this true? I found a few people tweeting it, but I always want to make sure I do my due diligence on every down report on RBN. So then CJ sent me this, and this is breaking to me now, like live. So I'm asking you, have you heard about this? I'll read the headline for the people who only listening. Russia says Moscow attackers got financial backing from Ukraine. So most of what we were talking about was like speculation, why it was Ukraine, why it makes sense. But this seems like it'll be hard evidence, and it's wild if true. Do you have any initial thoughts on this before we wrap up?
Yeah. So again, the investigation is still ongoing, and the thing with Russia is like they're not going to say things that they're not sure of. So if they say something, it means like, okay, we're gonna show the receipts, sort of thing. And so after the investigation, the FSB did conclude that Ukraine was involved and that the US was likely involved. And when you talk about Ukraine, right, getting its financial backing, who is Ukraine getting its financial backing from? Who is giving billions of dollars to Ukraine? It's the United States and the entirety of NATO giving them financial backing. And so obviously, if Ukraine's involved in this orchestration, who's behind Ukraine? It's the same way as if you say ISIS-K. Well, if ISIS-K is involved, who is ISIS-K doing the bidding of? Who is right now using ISIS-K to attack the Syrian army? It's the U.S. You have U.S. troops there working with these Al-Qaeda affiliates, these so-called moderate rebels. You have them right now working and trying to destroy the entirety of these countries still to this day. So how can you isolate and say ISIS-K is a global threat? But who created ISIS-K? Who are they working for? The United States has notoriously supported radicals and these fascistic factions for their own political maneuvers and their own benefits, not just in Afghanistan, not just in Iraq, but you could also look at Libya. You could also look at Ukraine and the Azov battalion and the fascistic entities they have supported that they even trained in the US. And then you can go as far back as Latin America and look at what happened with Nicaragua and El Salvador with the Contras. You see that the United States at every single turn has supported actual terrorist groups that have killed and murdered people of their individual countries, and has painted them as a necessary means to achieve some sort of political objective. So when people talk about what happened at Crocus City Hall, you can't say that it was just ISIS in isolation. You can say, fine, if you want to say that ISIS-K was involved, well, who is ISIS-K? You know, ISIS-K is a U.S. creation. So if you want to talk about ISIS-K, sure, okay, well, that's fine. At the end of the day, whether it was Ukraine, whether it was ISIS-K, you have the West and the money, and not just the money and the funds, but also the footprints that Russia is investigating, pointing directly to them. They're not stupid. And again, the thing is with Russia, they're not just going to fall apart with this incident because they've been having threats, they've been having sanctions, they've been having attacks. Obviously, this hits a different note because, Nick, I mean, these are people that weren't political. We had the assassination of Daria Dugina. We had the assassination of several Russian bloggers and war correspondents. But these are all political people. These people that were going to a concert were completely just regular people going to see a concert. So this hits a different element. And what I think the West was trying to do is instigate Russia to attack, right, Ukraine in some sort of way, to retaliate and say, you know, bomb Kiev or do something, because people get emotional in the country and people are upset. But again, you have somebody like Putin and you have somebody he's not going to react like that. They're not going to do that. They're going to show this reaction in the battlefield. And that's what we're already seeing with the F-16s. We're seeing all of these attacks happen right now, but that's what they want. They want Russia to continue to react. And by the way, as you know, Russia has been receiving threats of having on the ground French troops, right, from Macron, having the Taurus missiles coming from Germany that could go as far as reaching Moscow, from Ukraine to Moscow, given by Germany. So we know that there are already NATO troops on the ground. We know that they're helping Ukraine with the machinery, with the ballistics, with all sorts of things. But if you have actual on the ground, you know, legitimate troops where they can say, okay, yes, this isn't a proxy war, this is a real war, that changes things. Now, unfortunately, I do think we're going to get to that point because these people are insane. And they see this as existential, just as Russia does. And for them, it's like, well, we can't lose Ukraine. Ukraine can't lose. They've said it many times. So I think what we're going to see is an attempt to continue to escalate this and push Russia, because they still think that because Russia won't react, right? And they do this with China as well. They cross all these lines and they're waiting and they're pushing and they're poking and they're poking. I think they're going to get to that point, and I think it's going to get worse before it gets better, unfortunately. And I'm not saying that with any sort of happiness, but I really think that this country, our country, the United States and Europe, are run by a bunch of just like literal psychopaths.
I said it before. I don't want it to happen, but we have to get humbled. The United States is going to get humbled. I don't, as someone who's anti-war, I'm going to do everything to prevent it from happening. But I think this war with Russia-China coalition versus the West is going to happen. Millions of people are going to die, and then people had to learn their lesson after that. And I'm doing everything I can to prevent it. But I think personally, this is my personal opinion, I think that's the only thing that's going to stop. That's the only thing that's going to stop the West. It's unfortunate. It's unfortunate. One last thing I want to share, because I skimmed this article, and this article, to your point you were making earlier, it just as deeply as it's serious as we imagined. You know how this is ISIS-K explained. I skimmed this article. There is no mention of the fact that the United States trained and propped up ISIS. Look at this sentence. ISIS has always been somewhat rhizomatic with offshoots connected to the main entity of Iraq and Syria. And I promise you, I slightly skimmed this as you was talking. There is no fucking mention of a United States connection with ISIS at all. And people wonder why I said we're the most propagandized country in the world. In this article from Vox, where they're going to explain to you what ISIS is, no mention of the United States influence with them. Unserious. I just want to mention that because this article is as bad as I imagine. Thank you for your amazing breakdown as always, Fiorella. Always good to have you on. I love to have you on for these Russia updates every once in a while. So thank you for making time to join me. So anything else you want to shout out? Anything else you want to promote and plug, Fiorella?
Yeah, I will have some reporting out right now on Twitter. I was just in Jenin, actually, where Shireen Abu Akleh was killed. And she was just doing her job. And I want to remind everybody that she was killed before October 7th and in the West Bank, because that's the occupied Palestinian territory, Jenin. And it is an area where there is armed resistance fighting the Israeli offensive forces at the moment. And that was around before October 7th in 2022. And it was also not around Hamas. So anytime you hear the excuses of Hamas, you need to remember the West Bank, and you need to understand that the Israeli forces are killing people every day there, and there is no Hamas. So I will have more reports from that coming as well, and just look out for that. And you can find my new show, Fiorella Isabel on YouTube, Fiorella in Moscow, and I have a few new projects coming out related to that as well. So thanks for having me, and we'll see you next time.
Yeah, well said. Keep up the good work. Make sure you guys check out Fiorella. And I'm taking this Saturday off. I always take one Saturday off at Nick at noon, so no Saturday stream tonight. But dude, this Monday is the anniversary of the Nick and CJ show, and we are planning a banger for you guys. I'm talking about John Baraka. We're gonna have a ton of different guests that rolling on. CJ confirmed. I don't want to actually. Maybe I should put a list. We got like multiple guests that coming on. Jamu. Let me see. Well, who else do we actually got confirmed? Garland Nixon. We're working on. We're trying to get Ritter on. And we're planning. The point is, I'm planning a super show on Monday. So that's next time you're gonna see me. I'm not going live this Saturday, but you guys will see me on Monday with our super show. Make sure you guys check out Fiorella and her amazing journalism as well. Thank you guys for watching. Have a great weekend, my friends. Take care.